Imagine when you share your darkest hours, they become someone else's light. I'm Jennifer Lee, a global community storyteller, host, author, and survivor, guiding you through genuine, unfiltered conversations. Together, we break the silence, shatter stigma, and amplify voices that need to be heard. Each episode stands as a testament to survival, healing, and reclaiming your power. Listen to I Need Blue on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or your favorite platform. Learn more at www.ineedblue.net. Trigger warning: I Need Blue shares real-life stories of trauma, violence, and abuse meant to empower and support. Please take care of yourself and ask for help if needed. Now let's begin today's story. This episode focuses on the topic of rape. If you are a victim of rape or know someone who is, contact the National Sexual Assault Hotline operated by RAINN, RAINN, which is the largest anti-sexual violence organization. They can be reached at 1-800-656-HOPE. When you call this hotline, again, the number is 1-800-656-HOPE, it automatically routes the caller to their nearest sexual assault service provider. I will pause to allow anyone who is feeling triggered to stop this episode. It does contain graphic details. Remember, your well-being comes first. Some details have been altered to protect the identity of the survivor. Today's story is about Becki, a female survivor of rape. Included in this conversation is her husband, Lloyd, who was her boyfriend at the time. Also joining us today will be her daughter. Please note, the definition of rape is a bit graphic, which is inevitable when describing crimes this violent. Rape is forced sexual intercourse, including vaginal, anal, or oral penetration. Penetration may be by a body part or an object. Rape victims may be forced through threats or physical means. In about 8 out of 10 rapes, no weapon is used other than physical force. Anyone may be a victim of rape: women, men, or children, any sexual orientation. Right now, I would like to welcome my guests, Becki, her husband Lloyd, and their daughter.
Thanks, Jen. We really appreciate it. We're happy to be here to be able to talk to you today.
Becki, I am so glad that you are able to return and talk to me as well. We left off the last episode without giving away too many details. You were headed to the hospital. You were adamant about not going in the ambulance, and you were in the vehicle with your parents with a police escort. Now that we're briefly caught up, let's continue where we left off.
We get to the hospital. I know I didn't have to go in the waiting room. I believe that they had my dad pull up kind of like an ambulance entrance. The police officer pulled in there, and my dad pulled in behind him and went straight to like an exam room. From there, bright lights, lots of voices. Don't have any idea what was asked of me. I was over 18, so I'm 99% sure that they hustled my parents out. And I think my parents were like with police officers or whatever. They were starting the rape kit exam. It's horrendous. It's necessary. And I by no means would say not to do it. It's like a second attack. I mean, it's so horrible. The shirt, I guess, that was left on had to be taken off. I had to stand on a sheet, and then it was wrapped in that sheet because that was going to be evidence. I remember pictures being taken of my face because I had been hit by the object. They kind of do a pretty good job on like SVU. People have seen in like the crime shows, the fingernails, the mouth swab, the nasals, and then of course the, internal exam. At some point before I got like on the table for the internal exam, this woman came in the room Had no idea who she was. My recollection of her, she was kind of a hippie looking lady, had this peaceful vibe about her. And she came over to me and she talked to me and she said she was there for me and only me. Questions I had, whatever I need, she was just basically there for me. I know she held my hand, talked me through the exam, what they were going to be doing, and it made a difference. I've spoken to people who have had the kit done and didn't have an advocate by their side. It's a world of difference from what my experience was. I mean, I'm not saying it was fun by any means. I didn't call this person. I didn't know who she was. As it turned out, she worked for the state's attorney's office. She had come up from a southern county where she had already done that for them. And then they asked her to move up here. She was a blessing. So she kind of got me through that moment. Because I had my mom there, she had brought me shorts and a t-shirt or whatever. You know, I was able to leave the hospital in my own clothes. I left the hospital with my parents and I went back to my parents' house. I think I showered for about 3 months. That's what I felt like. That was the immediate thing that I did. I showered very hot and very long.
When you finally got to take a shower, did you just cry?
There was as much tears as there was water in the shower. Yeah, it was. I was there until the water turned too cold to stay under anymore. I got into bed in my parents' spare room. I probably passed out / fell asleep. I woke up several hours later and family members were there. You know, word was getting around the family of what had happened.
I would have to imagine after everything happened, you wanted to be alone.
I had no desire to speak to anyone. Kind of like my family wanted me to just kind of like bounce back. At this point now, it's the day after Christmas.
Yeah, we'll call that day one.
Yeah, day one of the new me, apparently. I had plans to go shopping with like my mom and my aunt and my cousins. It was something we did every year, like, you know, the after Christmas sales. I know I remember my mom and my aunt and my cousin being like, are we still going? And I was just kind of like, I'm sorry, what? I didn't know that I could say no. I don't think my family had any idea what to do. At that point, they had no idea the extent of whatever had happened to me. They were in, I'm sure, as much denial and shock as I was. I said, okay, sure. And I got dressed and I got in the car with my mom and we went to the mall. And I think I lasted about 10 minutes. No, this is not where I should be. And I just told my mom to bring me home.
What triggers were you experiencing?
It was hard because I had nothing to go on.
Yeah, can I say something about
Sure,
that?
of course you can.
What we learned was a case like this is actually very statistically rare, where it was a total stranger who basically targeted her and then executed the crime. It was extremely rare, even to the people that she talks to today about it.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that always lingered until a certain point, which she'll get to, it could be anybody. Like anybody that she was looking at, it could have been them. Mm-hmm. She had no way of knowing the voice. She had no way of knowing the dimensions. Dark hair, light hair, could have been anybody. And that just plagues you because you don't know, are they seeing you every day and kind of going, ha, 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 ha. It just messes with your mind.
100%. Especially the early days. It was almost as if I had goosebumps at all times, just constantly wired. I worked at the mall. Anytime a male spoke to me, anytime I had to deal with customers, anytime I was walking anywhere, as far as I was concerned, it could have been any of them.
Talking about triggers, it's just constant.
Early on, it was loud noises. Months after the attack, working at the mall and some male friends that worked across the mall. I was the only one at the store at the time. And one of the guys thought it was funny. He came over and he kind of like hid behind the counter. And as I came around, he like jumped out at me. And I literally unconsciously, I punched him in the face. He was just like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I was like, yeah, you can't do that. Like, you can't do that. People knew that something had happened to me, but we had kind of put the story out. Someone had tried to break into my house and I was able to get out a window and get away because I had to go give police statements. And so there had to be something that had happened, but I was not disclosing to everyone the full extent of what had happened to me.
Lloyd, do you remember how you found out Becki had been hurt?
If I gave you an answer to that question, I'd be lying. I don't remember. I know that I was there, and whatever I did made a very lasting impression on her parents.
Yes. On my mother, especially.
They really didn't know me.
I think you had met them once at the house, and my dad,
You
were a long-haired hooligan.
At the time, I literally had hair down halfway down my back.
He had a full-on, like, Billy Ray Cyrus mullet.
Bleached out blonde. I wasn't very impressive. And whatever happened...
because I remember what my mom told me.
Well, at that moment, her father, who was like Archie Bunker...
Very much like Archie Bunker.
Changed his idea about me.
Yes. And I respect this so much and I appreciate this so much. But instead of just calling me or avoiding me or whatever, he called my house. He called my mother. What do I do? What does she need? What can I do? It was never about him. But my mom's just not like a super emotional person. But I remember her just being like weepy every time she talked about what he said to her.
Lloyd, during this time, you had moved away.
I was literally not living in the same town anymore.
That first year was rough. I recall people telling me I was like the Walking Dead. They said like all the light had gone out of me. Basically fell into alcohol to cope. I wasn't even 21 yet. After the initial police investigation and, me giving them my statement, they had fingerprints and they had my rape kit, but it was 1990, so...
It sounds like you're saying with what you provided them, it wasn't enough and they weren't able to catch him.
Mm-mm. My dad actually went to work for a security alarm company. It was kind of becoming a new thing to put alarm systems just in like the average house. From that time on until my father died 7 years ago, it sort of became like his mission. He put together a program with his company that gave security systems to women who were trying to get away from violent partners or any kind of situation. It became his life's mission to save any other person that he could.
How did your mom cope?
She didn't treat me any differently. She didn't coddle me. Honestly, that's probably what kept me moving, kept my job. It was just assumed that I was just going to keep going. She was there for me if I needed anything, but my dad was much more my support if I was having a breakdown. I needed to kind of have at least something that felt like I wasn't scarred, and my mom and dad never made me feel that way.
So that is what you needed?
Yes.
That's great. So at this point, we know Lloyd has moved away. Your parents are able to provide what you need. Let's fast forward because your story has a lot of different parts and we are not done.
I had gone through like the first year of just surviving. Following November, having a party, and Lloyd showed up. We saw each other and that was it.
We've been together since that night.
We've literally been together since that night, about 11 months after the attack, and we've been together ever since. Flash forward, we get married a few years later, we have a kid, and then now we're 10 years. In that 10 years, honestly, what really put me to the healing and to becoming who I am today was having my kid. Becoming a mom, she's a cool kid, she saved me. Took me out of the trauma zone, and it made me want to stop being as vulnerable and as easily triggered. I hadn't really put a lot of work into getting better. I saw a therapist for probably almost a year, dug deep, and it was hard, but it was amazing. And it really put me on the path to keep going forward. And right towards the end of it, I found out I was pregnant. It was just perfect timing. I was in a much better mindset. It has been 10 years, and I still have no more of an idea who broke into my home that night, tied me up and raped me than I did that night. Nothing. I was just learning to cope with that aspect of it. I had no choice. It was just this phantom, and it was there, and I was moving on with my life. Screw him. Our child was about a year old. I got a call at the place that I was working. So I pick up the phone and they asked me, is this so-and-so? And I said, yes. And they said, this is Officer so-and-so, and we're calling you about a case that you're involved in. This is something that happened in 1990. Everything in me just dropped. I I literally I dropped the phone. I couldn't speak. It was just this blur of noises. I picked the phone back up and he was thankfully still there waiting to talk to me. He told me through a DNA match, when they get a DNA sample from anyone who's been arrested, they put it through this system to match to cold cases. And they got a match to the DNA from my kit. That still gives me goosebumps right now. It is amazing. It's life-altering, unbelievable that by me calling 911, going to the hospital, and them doing this, it was 1990. DNA wasn't even really a thing. Thank the stars, they actually did this. I am so thankful for it. And I know that I am very lucky because it doesn't happen as often as it should or could. I was asked to speak with the state's attorney. I was told the person who had raped me had raped another woman, basically had the same MO of my attack. And then when they ran the DNA, it was a hit. They had him.
Can you describe what you felt when you heard that news?
It was kind of a blur.
The thing I remember about that was it's every emotion that you can imagine, like in almost like one singular moment. It's disbelief, it is relief, but at the same time, a triggering event. Mm-hmm. Because now, after 10 years of fighting to basically put it away on a shelf,
and we had,
now it's right back in front of your face again.
Yeah, we were just, it was never going to happen. Yeah. I was never going to know. So we had just taken that as what it was going to be, and we were working with that. Unfortunately,
it brings back a lot of the original feeling.
The triggers came back, the nightmares came back, but it was still empowering, to know that they had, I couldn't believe it. You don't. You can't believe that it was all just not real. There was no way it was real. And I went, back and forth with the state's attorney and the police detectives who were now on the case. The two of them were pretty much my go-tos. Of course, I had a victim's advocate assigned to me again. By this time, the victim's advocate was like a real office and a whole group of people. Luckily for me, they had so much against him. There was nothing he could fight. His choice basically was, if he wanted to fight it, fine, but he would spend, the rest of his life in jail because they had him on not only my case, but the case that had gotten him in jail to get his DNA swab.
What did you think or feel when you heard he raped another woman?
I just wanted to find her and hold her because it was new for her. He, I guess, had gotten sloppier because, as we'll find out, I wasn't his first, and there were many before the 10 years was over. He, I guess, started talking to people. The last person that I know of that he attacked, who, became the trigger point for my DNA matching and all of that, she recognized his voice, I believe, and she knew who he was. So that was how they had first gone to him and questioned him and arrested him. They had done a DNA swab of him, matched it to her, and then put it through the system and then found myself. There were no other DNA matches, but there were MO matches. He allocated to the current case, my case, and a few others that they knew they had him on, but they didn't have DNA. In total at that time, I believe he had allocated to a total of 5 cases. All of the ones that they have him on is Florida. So I didn't have to testify because he made a plea bargain. But part of his plea bargain was that he had to explain each case that they had him for, give them evidence to explain how he had found his victims. In my case, when I had gone to Walgreens that night to get the laundry soap and whatnot, apparently he was in the store and he saw me and he heard me talking with the cashier about how excited I was that I had the house to myself. He then followed me probably 5 miles, which pisses me off so much now because it was Christmas night. There was nobody else on the road. I never even noticed this piece of crap followed me all the way to my house. Never even noticed. Now, if someone follows me for more than 30 seconds, I'm weaving into other roads. And he followed me to my house. And then he went and parked somewhere down the street and basically just waited for me to turn my lights out. He tried to get in through the slider, but the stick that was in the door had stopped him. But then he found that the window to the garage was like loose. It was like broken. And he was able to get in through that. And when he stepped in, he stepped on the dryer and he hit the washing machine lid, and the washing machine lid fell down. And that's what I heard. And to this day, there's another trigger. I just get mad now. He had pled to a sentence of 25 years. At the time, the law was prisoner had to serve 85% of their sentence before they could be considered for good behavior or parole or whatever. I was told at the time that he was going to serve no less than 19 and a half years. And that was that
was a guarantee.
So in 19 years, what year would that be?
2019. We go to the hearing. He doesn't know me. I don't know him. Other than the moments that he saw my face in Walgreens, he had really never seen my face. So I had no interest in this man seeing my face. I did not want him to know who I was. So I chose not to give an impact statement because I didn't need to. I could have done one and had like the advocate read it, but at the time I was too raw, and I don't think I realized how important an impact statement is. The FDLE officer and the city officer, victim's advocate, husband, and my father all came with me. They had a row cleared out towards the middle to the back that was reserved. We took up that row. The police officer, my dad, my husband, the other police officer, and I had 4 big strapping men sitting on the side of me. So he came into the courtroom, hobbling in his orange jumpsuit and his chains around his ankles and chains around his wrist, and it was fabulous.
Can we disclose how old he was?
That time he would have been mid-30s now when I was seeing him. He was mid-20s when he attacked me. He just looked like an average dude. There was nothing. I'm sure his neighbors would say, we had no idea that he could be like that, because I will also say that I found out through all of the pre-hearing stuff at the time of my attack, he was married and he had 2 young children. His wife would work nights. That's when he would go out and stalk. I found out years later that he actually, just crazy, but he worked in the same mall as me. But that was not how he had ever seen me. He was a traveling trainer for a company. He would travel around and set up stores and train managers and whatnot. I found out he had been a manager at this local restaurant where I would eat because I worked in the mall. I didn't eat there. Once I knew that, I never ate there again. It was just sort of a little protest, I guess, So now I've seen him. He reads a statement to the court, to me, and it was written specifically to me, apologizing, telling me it wasn't my fault. He was a changed man. Although, let's keep in mind, he had been in jail for a couple of years now while they were putting this other case together. So I don't know how much he had really changed. Of course, this is what he's trying to, portray. No offense to anyone who truly has, but he was finding God. And
I have a couple of questions. As you're seeing your perpetrator, you're hearing him apologize to you. How are you reacting? Are you crying? And did he know you were going to be in the courtroom that day?
Yes. He had been told that I was going to be in the courtroom, but he was told that he could not speak directly to me, as in turn around and speak to me, and that I wasn't going to show myself in the courtroom. It was a full courtroom because other cases were going on that day. He walked in with the sheriff's officer. He walked up to the table to the judge, and as he came in the room, he scanned the courtroom, where we were all sitting. And you could see he was looking for someone, definitely trying to find me. His face and his eyes went past me, and they just completely passed me. He had no idea who I was. It was such a powerful moment because now he was the bug and I was the one with the magnifying glass. I was staring at him, boring, holes into his head, and he had no idea where the lasers were coming. He had no idea where that energy was coming from. When he made his statement, Then he turned around again and scanned the room. And again, he just went right by me. It was a very empowering moment.
That was probably the thing that she talked about the most about that moment.
I mean, I'd been a survivor and I was getting there, but that moment shifted my mindset from rape victim to rape survivor. Now I truly felt myself as a survivor. And oddly, I think I cried. I know I cried when he was speaking, but as he turned around, I made sure that there was like no expression on my face.
I would like to ask Lloyd how he felt when he first laid eyes on the man who hurt his wife, who had raped her.
I think that anybody could pretty much imagine that emotion. Not just me, but the company I was in.
My dad.
Have that man DNA that you have no control over. But at the same time, I think we were all optimistic that he was going to finally get what he deserved.
We really thought we weren't going to have to, I wasn't going to have to think about this man for the next almost 20 years at least.
Yep.
I mean, I walked out of that courtroom so differently because if someone looked at me or made eye contact or smiled at me, I could smile back. I could make eye contact back. I had not realized how those 10 years had continued to weigh on me in that regard. It freed up so much of my headspace that I hadn't realized had still been being taken up by just that alone. That was a big day. That was a big moment.
So you leave court. What happens next? Because we know it's not over.
Really, for the first time in 10 years and in our marriage and in my life now as a young mom, I just went on. I just lived. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I still had triggers. I still had panic attacks. I still had bad days, but it was such a turning point.
I mean, I think that there was still a little disbelief.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it had been so long. We couldn't even really comprehend that what happened had just happened.
Those 10 years before, I didn't sleep at Christmas. Sometimes I would make my husband and we'd have to sleep in the living room. I couldn't sleep in a bedroom on those nights. So, by then we had like top-notch, you name it, security system. I was very secure and safe feeling, but I still never felt truly safe. Now we were on a paved road, kind of walking a lot more smoothly down that path. I had my child now. That made it a little tough. When he went to prison, she was 1. She never knew. There was never any need to tell her anything. I'd have to imagine I was a little overprotective. I wanted her to live freely. It got a little more difficult as she got older. It was a lot harder for me to let her go to sleepovers. She was thankfully very much a homebody those first 10 years of her life. And we were lucky that we sort of ended up with the house that everybody wanted to be at. We were kind of like the gathering place. She was not a fan of going. We found out later that she had Asperger's syndrome. We knew something was a little not the same with her. She wasn't diagnosed until she was 18. Pretty much a very calm, quiet child. She liked to just hang with us and stay home. But she had a big circle of friends, but they were very happy to, come hang out at our place. She was an only child. I don't know. Do you ever remember Christmases where I'd make you sleep with us?
Mm-hmm. One of those Christmases, I woke up and nobody was there and they were wrapping presents and I found out Santa wasn't real.
We got busted when she was about 8. Christmas night, I would either sleep in her room
until I fell asleep
on the bed, or she would have to sleep in our room with us. But we could not be separate on Christmas night.
Did you ever wonder why?
No, not really. I just thought it was like, oh, well, it's Christmas, so everybody has to be together.
It was like, as she was younger, I would kind of keep her with me. As she got a little bit older, I would kind of let her go to her room, but I would stay with her. And
something happened. Something changed to where you went from not telling your daughter what happened to feeling that you had to tell her now. Can you tell us what happened?
Yes. Obviously, I knew someday I would tell her, but I had no plans of telling her when she was a preteen, because it was not something that I would ever use as like, you can't do this because this thing happened to me. We just went about our lives. Lloyd and I would, of course, still talk about things, and I would have good days and bad days. Curious, this is a question for you. Do you recall like breakdowns that you didn't understand or anything?
No, I think you hid them. I don't think I ever really saw anything.
Thought he was going to be away for 19 years. Weren't going to have to worry about it in that time. Every year around Christmas, I would do a search and I'd be able to find him and find out where he was. There's a thing called Vine. You set up your phone number anonymously, of course, but you match to your case or your perpetrator or whatever. And anytime this person is released or moved or anything happens with them, you are notified. So throughout those 10 years, I got a few Vine phone calls because they would move him from one prison to the next or whatever. We're at about almost 10 years down the road now. I got a Vine call they always come at like 6:30 in the morning. They're telling me that prisoner so-and-so has been released, blah, 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 probation. And I'm like, it's just very matter of fact. As of this day, he was already out. Like he was leaving that day. Like there was no ahead warning. He was leaving that day, being let go. I was just in shock. I had another 10 years before I had to worry about this. This can't be right. So I called my victim's advocate, who I was still in touch with. I said, what the heck is going on here? This can't be right. She didn't even know. Nobody knew. So it took her most of the day, and she ended up finding out he had been let out. Initially, they had made it sound like it was because of overcrowding in the jail and good behavior and all this. But it ended up, he had kind of gotten by on a crappy loophole because he had attacked me in 1990. He had been arrested in 2000. So the law in 2000 was that he had to serve 85% of his sentence. But because he had done the attack in 1990, that law didn't exist in 1990. So they used that to say that he couldn't be held to the 85%.
Do you know if he had any family members in the courtroom?
I don't know at all the first time. He is a registered sexual predator because he is a serial rapist. Because of that, he had received what they called a lifetime probation, and he had lifetime monitoring. He had to wear an ankle bracelet for the rest of his life. Non-negotiable, not an option, not something that he could change or get out of with parole. He had to have this monitor, and he had to check in for the rest of his life. They explain all that to me. Nothing I can do about it. There's absolutely nothing. So now my kid is about 11 at this point, almost 12, I believe. You know, Lloyd and I talked about it. I had no choice but to tell her because everything that I had been free of was now taken away. I had to worry again. He was going to be out. He could decide to try and find me and end me or take it out on my child. I don't know. This man is the epitome of everything that is dark and evil. My ability to stay calm was severely compromised. We sat her down together. I honestly don't remember what I said. Do you have any recollection?
I mean, I think you guys were both really calm, and you just kind of said a while ago, this thing happened, and now he's going to be released. And like you had to tell me, and you didn't want to, but you had to. I think it was a very long conversation.
Yeah, we talked more about keeping her safe. We talked about we have the security system. Mommy always carries pepper spray. We always have our cell phones, you know, so we tried to focus more on the fact that we were safe and that we were going to remain safe, but that we had to be a little more diligent now. We had, you know, the code word. If somebody came and said, hey, my mom told me to pick you up, we reinforced that. Once a week or so, we'd be like, what's the code word? You know, we tried to do everything we could basically to protect her from having someone approach her.
This question is for your daughter, if it is okay. I would like to know how she felt when you were telling her about the attack. How does someone that young process that information?
I mean, I think it changed a lot because I was like in middle school at the time. Some kids at least don't know how bad the world can be. And a lot of stuff is like a joke. There were a lot of jokes regarding that kind of topic going on in my middle school, and I didn't really used to pay them any mind. But as soon as I was told, it all kind of like clicked how real things can be. And so from then on, like, I didn't laugh at jokes. I didn't talk to people. I kind of didn't really have male friends for a really long time. until college, I really didn't have any close male friends that weren't gay. So yeah, it just kind of made me a lot more aware of the world.
She was always very clear-headed, very logical. It just sort of made this part of the world like a real thing now. You know, she's very empathetic. She's very much an advocate for survivors.
And I mean, I never experienced anything, any of it. I still kind of end up with the same symptoms of like PTSD or something. You know, I can't have somebody, maybe that's one of the reasons besides being autistic, that I can't have somebody like hug me. I don't really trust people that easily, and I'm always very wary of doors and windows, and I'm always kind of thinking of the worst case scenario. Like, well, for an example, there was one time that me and my friend walked to the park, even though I didn't want to, and then it got dark, but we went to a gas station and we got slushies, and the whole time when we were walking, I was just thinking, how am I going to kill a man with this straw if they come up behind us right now?
And then I got to say, she finally had enough, and she called me, or she texted me and said, I'm at this park, you need to come get me.
But I had to like pretend to be like, oh man, my mom has to pick me up, sorry.
Except I flew into that park like a wild woman and threw those kids in the car, and I went full mama bear.
When you've been a victim of crime, you redefine danger. Would you agree?
Yeah, your opinion of what could happen changes so differently.
It changes the mentality that I think a lot of people kind of have, where it's, oh, it couldn't happen to me. And it changes it to where, like, I'm always hyper observant of anything could happen to me at any moment, and I need to be prepared.
It's just another reason that pissed me off. I had to shake my kid's foundation long before I was ready to tell her that these things were real. I had to kind of rip that innocence, that, you know, I had to rip that blindfold off and be like, sorry, kid, that stuff you see on TV, those jokes you hear, yeah, no, those people are really, the boogeyman isn't pretend. That really sucked. That's when I think I started to be a little more angry.
I mean, I think at a certain level, I am glad that I knew so early, because I was able to kind of be the protective friend. And like, if I was going to go somewhere with my friends, I kind of always had it in the back of my mind, like how I was going to handle the situation and how I protect people. And so
probably actually made her going off to college for me a little easier, because I didn't have to lay this new weight on her.
So this is 2010. About 12 years ago, he was let out of jail. So where is he now?
He is now, thankfully, back in prison. There were at least 2 or 3 instances where his monitor stopped working, and so they couldn't track him for, like, one of them was 45 minutes, one of them was 3 hours. His story was that the battery had just died and something had malfunctioned with the battery, because it doesn't have GPS on it. It's just kind of shows if he's out of range or whatever, or if it's not tracking, I guess. We fast forward again now, 2018. I get another Vine call, but this time he's in prison on the other side of the state. And that's just different, because normally he just kind of goes to like the county jail for a couple of days. They realize they let him go again. I call this next, person, whoever they've given me to. I told him who I was, and he explained to me that he had been caught in a sting where they were getting people who were working as basically unlicensed contractors. Well, they got him. It turned out that he had been practicing as a building contractor, like a handyman, for at least a couple of years. He didn't have a contractor's license because he couldn't get one, because you can't get a contractor's license if you are a convicted felon sexual predator. He had to go on trial for that. He was in jail for about a year. Sometime in 2019, because he's a lifetime parolee and a sexual predator, he has to answer to the courts where his parole is coming from his rapes. Late 2019, early 2020, he went before the judge in the other county in the state. That judge gave him 20 years for the parole violation. He said, you're not just going to do like 5 years or whatever. We're going to sentence you to 20 years. That was good. But with all of his time and the different things, On that case, he was probably, maybe now we were looking at 9, maybe he would actually serve maybe 9 to 10 years. So now he had to get moved to go before the district judge. And the assistant state's attorney here said he has broken his parole time and time again. He's going to reoffend. He's a serial rapist. He's a serial offender. This man cannot be free again. It became like a court case. He got attorneys and they were building like this huge case, and they were actually trying to get him off completely. So they were trying to find this little loophole that was going to actually get his bracelet off, and he was just going to be free for the rest of his life because he was a good man. We fast forward now. Now we're going to be going to court. Now I have met with the state's attorney, and I am going to testify in court this time. I was going to give an impact statement. And this time, my statement was now going to make a difference. There was a chance that I could say something that would make a difference and show that this guy should not be free. The case kept getting pushed back, and the case kept getting pushed back. They kept trying to get him out because of health reasons. Probably a year and a half, from the beginning to when he finally went before the court. Now we get to 2020. Enough has settled that they can have courtroom hearings. I was able to give my impact statement.
So, Becki, I remember when the court process started, you didn't have to give an impact statement the first time. Now, this time you are given the opportunity and you want to give an impact statement. Can you explain to the audience what that felt like?
Of course, it was empowering. That's probably the word that everybody says, but it's really true. I think maybe especially for me, because the first 10 years of my healing, I didn't know who had raped me. And then to finally have that and not have given, definitely was not ready then to give my impact statement. I wouldn't have even known what to say back then. But after almost another 10 years of living with him in and out of jail, I think I had rationalized my own feelings more by then. It's going to sound weird, but I was anxious. I was excited to be able to speak of it and have him actually hear it and know that he was going to hear my words. The aspect of standing up in front of him and facing him was definitely daunting. That was the most nervous thing about it because, of course, I've only seen his face a few times and I had made sure that he didn't know my face. That was a little scary, but that was when I was like, you know what? No, I'm not going to be afraid anymore to that extent. You're not going to keep me hiding. I'm not going to try to fade away. When I was able to get up there and actually say all the things that I wanted to say and try and implore to the judge what he had done to me, not just physically, but mentally. And, how it had impacted my life, my husband's life, my child's life, my parents' life, my friends' lives. His family had just stood there and talked about what a wonderful man he was and how he did all these things for them and just does not go with the person who did what they did to me. I don't know. It's such a weird thing to say, but it was just wonderful to just have that power, to really feel my strength. Probably the first time I ever really felt that strong as a survivor. Definitely a changing moment for me. And it made me feel more empowered to even be able to talk to you like this.
For somebody listening who is in a position where they're given the opportunity to give an impact statement, but they're scared, they're not sure if they want to do it or what to say, what would you tell them?
For me, I would say if you have any desire to do it and you feel like it would make a difference, then of course I encourage them to do it 100%. Depending on how their court system works, most will allow someone else to read the statement, whether it be an advocate or even maybe attorney or states. I'm not sure, but I know I was offered that. If I didn't want to stand up in front of him physically, I could have had my advocate read my statement. She would have stood with me. So I wasn't up there in front of anybody by myself. If you're at the point where you're being able to give an impact statement and you want to kind of release your voice, I absolutely encourage somebody to try and do that. It's going to help in your healing. Through journaling here and there, I had kind of written things to myself and written things to him. So it's something that you can do even if you never get a chance to read it in court. I think making that impact statement, I learned much about myself and where I was now, and it was really powerful.
I love everything you just said. Did it provide any type of closure?
Yeah. A lot of times you hear people say, oh, the family needs closure or the survivor needs closure. And we know as survivors, there's really no such thing. It's horrible to say, but the true closure will come when he's no longer of this world. And that's probably harsh to say to some degree, but I mean, that's the truth. Any little other bit of empowerment and closure that I can get, I will take it. And definitely the impact statement was a huge piece to that, because he was actually hearing from me this time. It wasn't the judge telling him that he was going to have to pay for this. It wasn't the cops or attorneys or whatever. It was me. My words, my voice, where he had taken that and taken so much from me, virtually destroyed whoever I might have been on the path to be that night. Where my life was going as a 20-year-old in that moment, that it completely diverged to another road. And here I am 32 years later, and I'm proud beyond words of who I've become and family in my life, and I'm super happy. I wouldn't take a second of it back, even the attack, because it got me to here. I have no regrets for the life I'm living today. For me, 100%, it was as close to closure as I think I could feel in that moment, for sure. I was able to give my impact statement. My victim's advocate was with me, and I just went by myself. I had friends who would have gone with me. Lloyd would have gone with me if I had wanted him to, but I wanted to do this myself.
What was the outcome?
He was sentenced that day. They sentenced him to 40 years. Broken parole so many times and whatnot that should he, when he gets out again, should he, when he breaks his parole again, it's an automatic life sentence. No court, no trial, nothing. He is now in a different prison closer to here, and he is currently appealing his sentence. I received the notice that he was appealing.
I was going to say, if I ended the tape right now and ended with 3 words, they would be to be continued, because this is not over for you.
Unfortunately, at some point, his appeal will be heard. He could, in theory, get his sentence overturned. I was assured that it's very unlikely. Right now, he's in prison, so I'm okay, and I check in periodically, because you can check on prisoners, so I still, probably tomorrow, because it's fresh on my brain and because we've talked about it and it's kind of been active in my head. So I'll do a check probably tomorrow. Reassures me that he's where he is. Right now, I'm just waiting for the next call from Vine. I see what they have to say. As you've probably noticed in this conversation, I haven't really cried. When we're done, I will shake and cry. But I don't really that much anymore while I'm talking about things. It gets me after. Been yelled at in groups by people because I don't cry. It's just how I cope, I guess. It's an everyday thing. I have tried to turn my life with it into advocacy. I volunteer with a couple of local centers here. People need to know what really happens, and they need to know that you get through it and you survive it. And I am so thankful every day for the people that have helped me and been by my side and continue to be. And, some of those people are law enforcement. Some of those people are therapists. Some of those people are volunteers. It truly takes an entire village to get through this. I know there are so many people that are not comfortable talking about what has happened to them and what they go through, because there is so much shame and blame and why didn't you do this different? What were you wearing? Why did you talk to that person? Why did you get into that person's car? I can kind of talk and I get people to go, oh my gosh. Oh, I get the automatic sympathy, where I think a lot of other people will get a raised eyebrow. People are saying to them, well, what could you have done different? That's not right. That's not fair. If I can be a voice for how it is, I'll do it. Every victim gets a life sentence. The perpetrators sometimes get nothing. They just go on with their lives.
As a survivor myself, the repercussions do not just affect you. They affect your family, your community. What advice, family to family, would you give to another family who is dealing with some sort of tragedy or trauma?
Wow. I guess I would say honesty. Talk about it. Keep that communication. As the survivor, if you're having a bad day, just say it's a bad day. I need a minute. Tonight, I gotta just go to bed, or I gotta go take a bath. I need a minute, and support that. and as the secondary survivors, which is what, my husband and my child are, and my father was, and my mother. And, I try to remember to support them too. I went through a lot of my older journals in the early years, and I have some things where I wrote that Lloyd just didn't want to hear about it anymore because I said the same thing over and over again. And that's not diss against him. That's just what it was because of what I was going through, and it was wearing on him. Seek help from counseling, find people to talk to. And what would you guys say from your aspect of it?
I don't know. I mean, obviously everybody's situation is different. My thing is I just keep going back to the same things, that it's a bad attitude that we have in our society towards things like this. And even within that family that you're talking about that we're trying to give advice to, you're going to have elements of that family that are we'll get over it people.
I have plenty of family members that this just happened a couple of years ago, and I had to go back to court and everything. I had so many people who said, I can't believe you still deal with this. I can't believe you still have to talk about this. It was such a shock to them that it was still part of my life. It's still something that every day I get up and am a survivor.
So I guess my advice to that other family, I would have to single out the victim or the survivor. They need to follow their heart to wherever it's going to take them to get through it. And so, unfortunately, if they're not getting that from their family, they need to go where they're going to get it. Sometimes the answer isn't in the home. And again, none of us asked for this. And when it happened, you're really essentially dealing with children. My wife and I were children. We were.
Yeah, we were barely. We were legally adults, but we weren't really there yet.
I wasn't. I think
you
I
were.
was
You were 19.
I was 19. Kids that are reacting to the situation. I was the right person for her. She was the right person for me.
I think we're lucky. We're very lucky, And but I really feel like the like he said, the communication and then my daughter's support of what I need in those moments, even like whether they went to court with me or not, they didn't get upset that I said, I need to do this myself.
Right. I was going to say, I'm not always there and I'm not always invited. You got to roll with it. He says,
okay. I actually had a friend who I love dearly, but who literally hollered at me for not telling her that I was going to court because she wanted to be at court for me. Well, I appreciate that, but I didn't want you there. It was the one time that I wasn't going to have to worry about if my husband was okay, if my kid was okay, if my mom was okay, if my friends hearing these things were okay. I was going to be worried about. I had my victim's advocate by my side, and I had the state's attorney, and they were there to make sure I was okay. And that's what I needed.
So you have to have that understanding.
Communication and listening, and like I said, counseling. Seek counseling. Don't be ashamed. Seek help.
I think that's what I would just say is there's no shame in like not laughing at a joke that's, offensive or not funny. There's no shame in not wanting to go out. There's no shame in talking about it or not talking about it. There's no shame in becoming an advocate, becoming an activist, being super loud and talking about it constantly. Like there shouldn't be any shame in that. It's important. And so if there's a family member who feels like, they don't want to speak out about it, or they're fearful of what other people might think if they start to become like super vocal about it, or if they start to be like, hey, you can't say stuff like that, just don't have any shame in standing up for it. And there's no shame in breaking down.
No.
There's no shame in feeling sad about it. There's no shame in crying. There's no shame in if you get triggered or if you feel triggered by something. There's no shame in feeling those feelings again and going through them.
Thank you. And yes, for secondary and the survivor.
If you have to cry in front of strangers, just do it. They don't care. They'll forget about it in a day.
That is true. That is very true.
Wow, you have an amazing family, and everything you just said is so important. Thank you for sharing that amazing and special family.
I do. Thank you. I am very well aware that I'm very lucky. I don't know how it happened, but I'm very thankful for it every second of every day.
I have one more piece of advice.
All right, now she's talking.
I have one more piece of advice. get a crazy dog who doesn't like anybody.
She adopted a dog who was an abused rescue, and he is very reactive. He's not good with people, but he is crazy protective of her and of us. And I will say that her having that dog it helps me sleep at night.
Becki, Lloyd, and your wonderful daughter, thank you so much for being my guest today. Your encouraging words, Becki, and just the support that you are providing your wife and your mother is absolutely amazing. Thank you for being my guests.
Thank you, Jen. We really appreciate it. You taking the time to talk to us and to help us tell our story so that maybe we can help someone else. So we really appreciate that and what you do. Thank you.
This is Jen Lee, creator and host of I Need Blue podcast. If you like this story and you would like to check out others, visit www.ineedblue.net. And remember, you are stronger than you think.